What's going on, world? Once again, it's your boy, Derek Dunn, back with another interview for Reviews&Dunn. Now I want to start out this interview with a quote from the great Louis Armstrong, who once said, "If you have to ask what jazz is, you'll never know." Now you may be asking yourself, why am I quoting Louis Armstrong? Well, that's because my guest today is well-known local D&B jazz musician, Mr. Charles Cannon. So I figured, why not, start off this brother's interview by a quote by one of the greats. So I want everyone to welcome Mr. Charles Cannon to the interview. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, Derek, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for doing this.
Peace and blessings, brother. It's always an honor to talk to a musician, especially a jazz player. Many, many moons ago, I myself was pursuing, jazz. I played the sax for about 3 months before, I got born at age 11. But I could play one note. So that's all that matters. I was able to play one note, and I achieved my goal of learning how to play one note. But, I highly, highly enjoy jazz, just from, listening and going to clubs and all that. So it's always been a passion of mine. So why don't you tell us, how did you get your start in music?
Well, it's pretty interesting. I started when I was I appreciate that story, by the way, because now, as you know, I'm a sax player. So I played 3 out of the 4 most popular saxophones now, the tenor, the soprano, and the alto. But back to your question, when I was about 11, 12 years old, I told my mother I wanted to play the saxophone. I had been listening to jazz. Back then, my favorites were folks like Wynton Marsalis and some of the older trumpet players of the day. But I really wanted to be a saxophone player. And I told my mom I wanted to join the school band as a saxophonist. Well, she took me to the band leader at the time. His name was Mr. Wilbur Theodore. And I got there, and he took one look at me and said, hey, he has lips for a trumpet. And I later found out that he just had too many saxophone players. But my mom ran out, and instead of getting me a saxophone, she got me a cornet. And I had been playing cornet and trumpet from that age, the age of 11 or 12, all the way into my 40s. I'm in my early 50s now. But about the time I turned 35, I said, between 30 and 35, I said, I've always wanted to play the saxophone. I'm an adult now. Why don't I just go out and buy one? And so I went out and bought a saxophone, taught myself to play, and here we are now. And so that's how I started with the instruments I play. The music has just always been something I loved. My parents didn't particularly listen to jazz a lot. They listened to a lot of R&B and disco back then, and soul music. But jazz, I just took a liking to jazz at a young age, and I've been mixing it up into the R&B and the soul music and gospel and even a little country music. I play on saxophone, just trying to get an experience with implementing the sax in all types of music, and I've just been doing it now for a couple of decades.
What's the first jazz album you can recall hearing that you would consider essential listening for any aspiring jazz player?
That's pretty funny. Great question, because I have the albums right in front of me. My dad just recently gave me jazz albums that he had when we were growing up. Again, he didn't listen to them a lot, but he had them in the record player cabinet. And one of the first jazz albums I got to hear was Gene Ammons' The Black Cat. He's the saxophone player from Chicago. Had some troubles in his life, but The Black Cat, Gene Ammons is the album I'm looking at right now. My dad just gave me these albums a couple of years ago out of his collection, and I've got them sitting right in front of me. But then I really got into, like I said, Wynton Marsalis. I got into his brother Branford, who plays the sax. I really love Stanley Turrentine, the Brecker brothers, Michael Brecker on saxophone particularly. Kirk Whalum now, as we move into the newer years, Kirk Whalum, who is a gospel jazz saxophonist, is just amazing. He's my favorite now. But all this started with Gene Ammons and Chameleon, listening to Herbie Hancock. Those were all the albums my dad had. And a couple of the albums my dad had in his collection, and I would play Chameleon over and over and over again back in the day. You know that song, Chameleon?
I do not, unfortunately.
Yeah, I bet you do. You just don't remember. It's the one that goes boom, 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 boom. Now I can't sing, but I'm sure if you heard it, you would know which song I'm talking about.
Cool. I'm going to have to add that one to the repertoire. So you just mentioned earlier that you can play numerous saxophones. What's your favorite one to play?
Well, actually, I struggle with that one because I like them all. I would say the two like more than any are the soprano and the tenor. I play the alto, and it's a beautiful instrument, but I prefer to play the soprano and the tenor saxophone equally.
I understand that you're a military vet. While you were enlisted, did you ever audition for the Soldiers Show?
I never auditioned for the Soldiers Show at all, but I did come in the Army. The whole reason I came in the Army was to join the Army Band. So back in 1986, when I initially joined, my goal was to join the Army in order to get into the Army Band. But I had braces on my teeth. And back in those days, they would not let me audition with braces on my teeth. It wasn't, in fact, I went on to I couldn't even go to basic training at that time with braces. So I joined the Army in July of 1986, but I was on delayed entry until April of 1987. And so by the time I got my braces off in April, I actually left for basic training like May 1st of 1987. But by the time I got my braces off, I had just got tired of waiting, and rather than waiting for the audition, I just joined the Army as a supply specialist, and then later changed my MOS to Patriot missiles. And those were the two jobs I had in the Army. But fortunately for me, everywhere I went, because I loved music so much, I connected with the local Army band. And so I spent a lot of time with Army band members, and some of which are still friends today, even though I've been retired now for 12 years. I still have a lot of former Army band members that I'm good friends with, and they still play, and I still play, and we've played in our churches together and played in some gigs together on occasion. And it's just been a great experience, even though I didn't get to fulfill my dream by joining the military, specifically the Army Band. I did get to learn some other skills and then add that to the music that I'm already doing. So it's been a great ride.
Yeah, I'm a vet myself, an Air Force, though, but I am an Army brat, though, and I'm also a fellow Loggy. So, thank you for your service, as we always say.
Yeah, man, thank you for your service.
When performing for an audience, do you prefer to play cover songs or your original material?
I'll be honest. I was thinking about this the other day because I'm actually working on a CD, but I do not enjoy doing my own music as much as I enjoy doing cover songs. I love cover songs. I don't know why. I wish I had a more liking to doing and creating my own original stuff. But for me, the cover songs are just amazing. I don't know what it is, but I guess I'm a little different from most musicians in that regard. A lot of musicians always talking about, making new music, but I would be totally satisfied to just go out and play songs that are already in existence and change them up a little bit, make them my own, and entertain the audience with familiar songs as opposed to songs that are my own. They come from my own heart, but the audience is not as familiar with those. In some cases, they're not familiar with them at all, and that poses a little bit of a challenge trying to get the listener to go on this experience with you when they're not really familiar with your music yet. So, yeah, I'm a cover song guy.
In the year 2020, do you think reading music has become a lost art?
I absolutely agree with that statement. And, I was reading Miles Davis. Miles Davis has this kind of, it's a autobiography type mixture book out. It's about a 500 to 600 page book. And I don't think a lot of people know he was very close to Jimi Hendrix. They were good friends. And he tells in the book a story about him and Jimi Hendrix. I guess they were preparing for a concert together or something, or working on music together. And he said he noticed that Jimi Hendrix would listen to what he played, listen to what the other musicians, and listen to what Miles played, and then he would memorize it and play it. And at that point, he realized Jimi Hendrix did not read music. And so they had a conversation, and he was working with Jimmy on trying to read music and learn how to do it. Today, there are so many awesome artists that don't need to read music because they play so well already, but they are playing where they're leading their own bands in most cases, or they're playing in situations where improvisation is really, appreciated, and it's not necessary to read music in the environment they're playing in. I think you should be able to do both. I was the opposite. I grew up reading music, and I had a hard time learning how to improvise and play from my heart. It took me years to get. In fact, I'm still working on it, but it took me years to become a decent improvisationalist. And I think that's where I am now. I'm not a master of it at all. I'm just still working on it, but I'm a decent improviser. But I can read music, and I think it's a very important skill. If you're playing by yourself, or you're leading your own band, it's not as important as when you're playing with a group of other musicians and everybody's expected to play certain things in unison or play different harmonies and different rhythms to complement each other. Is imperative in those type of environments that musicians understand and know how to read music. Again, it's something I'm working on, but as well. But I've been doing it for years. I believe that every musician that wants to play and with more opportunities being available to them, they need to understand and know how to read music, as well as you can pick up a book and read a book. You should be able to do the same thing on your instrument with reading music. That's just my opinion.
Respect. I totally agree. That's one of the things that I do think is a lost art is reading music. But on the flip side, though, it's always cool to see someone who can just play off of hearing and not actually reading music. I mean, hypothetically,
right.
If you're in a situation to where for whatever reason you don't have the sheet music and you have to do a concert, you could always just go off the ear and, still groove with the band and still being synced. What can you tell us about the Charles Cannon Group?
I'm sorry, was that last question again?
What can you tell us about the Charles Cannon Group?
The Charles Cannon Group, we are a group of local musicians in the DMV. Most of us live in the Woodbridge, Dumfries, Triangle, Fredericksburg area, Prince William County mostly, but all the way down. We have some members that live all the way down in Fredericksburg. We are trying to bring good music to this area so that people don't necessarily have to drive to Richmond or Washington, D.C. or Maryland to hear great music. And you drive all the way out there, and then you're paying a certain amount of money to hear some very good artists. We're trying to be that, bring that same flavor to the local Prince William County area. We have a bassist, a gentleman who plays the bass, a gentleman on drums, a gentleman on keys, a gentleman on guitar, and then I'm on saxophone. I was the band leader for another band called Smoketown Road for many years in this area, but we recently had to split apart. Some band members got married and retired and moved on. So I started CCG just about 3 months ago, and we had some amazing concerts coming up, but of course COVID-19 hit and just hindered our plans. We actually had to cancel several concerts we had in the making. But the bottom line is we are trying to bring great music to the Northern Virginia area to where folks don't have to travel so far to hear great jazz, R&B, pop. We do gospel. We do smooth jazz, you name it. And I just wanted to bring that flavor to this area. So the Charles Cannon Group has been working hard to do that. We're still working hard to do that. We've got some things coming out on Facebook here pretty soon. We're still doing recordings and bringing those recordings, although we're doing them virtually. We're bringing those recordings together and developing videos that's going to be posted soon on our Facebook page, and that's what we're all about, man, creating great music and sharing it with the local community.
Dope. I'm a huge concert goer, so I love live music. One of my personal mottos is you really see who's talented by going to see them live, and there's certain music that you have to just see live because it's meant to be experienced that way. A little later down the line, we're going to get into a question that ties into this, but a prime example is John Legend, and I mean that's a very talented brother. But I don't really drive around in my car listening to John Legend like nonstop because I know that he's so much you got to see live to truly appreciate what he can do, because he's a musician and not just like, someone that you're going to really sit in the car, on a 8-hour, trip down south blasting his music, only because it's meant to be experienced live.
Right.
Now,
and
go ahead. I don't know.
I was going to say, I was going to say that's a great observation, because I recognize that, and it's funny you mention that, because last Sunday, Mother's Day, I realized it was Mother's Day and people could not take their families out, their moms out to certain events, or that you would normally take your mom or your wife to. To hear a live concert, and all the Mother's Day concerts that we would normally have around this time of year are, non-existent because of the virus. So what I did was I set up on my front lawn. I live in a cul-de-sac. I set up on my front lawn as if I was playing at a venue, and I played outside on my front lawn with my entire sound system, and played for the community here. No one knew it. I just did it, unannounced. And wow, the response was amazing. People kept their distance, but the neighbors came out, set up lawn chairs on their lawns. People came by from other parts of the neighborhood and set out in the cul-de-sac in their vehicles and just listened to me play for an hour. And I played some, popular Mother's Day love type songs, but also some stuff from Stevie Wonder, All I Do, and songs, upbeat songs like that, and it went over really well. And the feedback I received was, first of all, I received some donations. I received some future engagements off of that, and I received a lot of appreciation from my neighbors for treating them and their wives, and some of them had their mothers visiting, and they just really enjoyed it. So live music is really a treat for a lot of people.
No doubt. As a Chicago native, I'm sure that you've been watching the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. What were your thoughts on the documentary, and did you learn anything about the GOAT that you didn't know?
Well, I got to be honest. I have been waiting for it to be over so that I can watch it on a binge watch. I've been hearing a lot about it. My friends have been talking to me about it. I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan, being born and raised in Chicago, and seeing the Bulls accomplish several of those championship rings while I was living there before I joined the Army. I don't know. I just wanted to watch it once all the clamor got down. I heard some things about him and management and him and his teammates, but I want to get a chance to sit down and really watch it and digest it on my own. I already knew that Michael Jordan and everything he touched, he was a beast because we were living there. And, all the challenges, some of the challenges he had with the gambling, some of the challenges he had with the women and all that being available to him, that wasn't such a big deal back then because he was, from what we could see, he was mostly focused on winning. And all I can say at this point is we knew he was the GOAT long before that term was even established. Michael Jordan was amazing. I think this generation that we're living in now have no idea. I think he is the greatest basketball player. No disrespect to LeBron or any of the others, but I think he is the greatest basketball player in my lifetime.
Speaking on basketball, I'm a big fan of biopics. One story I would love to see told is Wayman Tisdale's story, focusing on his jazz career, though. Which actor do you think could nail the role of Wayman?
Oh, wow. That's a good so first of all, I have to think of it this way. The guy would have to be young enough or I guess they would have to choose several different actors to do it. But he'd have to be young enough to kind of show us the basketball skills side when he was playing in the NBA, and then his professional side as he moved into the amazing jazz bass player he was, and then even into the point where he got sick and lost his life. I think at the end of it, Denzel Washington would be a great person to play him in his later years. Even though Wayman wasn't as old as Denzel is now, they can make Denzel look a little younger, which I'm sure they can. I think he'd be a great actor for portraying Wayman. I think the younger years would probably have to be somebody like I can't think of his name right now, but the young man who played the villain in Black Panther. What is his name?
Michael B. Jordan.
What was that?
Michael B. Jordan.
You broke. Yes. Funny, I couldn't remember that name. Right, Michael Jordan. I think he would be a great younger Wayman Tisdale and moving to, kind of toward the middle of his life. I loved his bass playing. It was sad to see him leave this planet so soon. And then when I learned about his story as a basketball player, man, he was awesome. Basketball player and musician. So what a way to change careers.
What do you consider to be a better jazz film? Bird, which focused on Charlie Parker starring Forrest Whitaker, or Miles Ahead, which focused on Miles Davis starring Don Cheadle?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Bird on that one for me. When I saw Forrest Whitaker playing Bird, and then, knowing some of the things I've read and learned about Bird, and I think he did a great job in that movie. It was definitely a sad movie, but it showed the challenges that Charlie Parker had with his personal life and the great musician he was. And it kind of lined up with what I had read about him already. I just enjoyed Bird a lot better.
Yeah, both good movies though. And Whitaker was robbed of that Oscar that year, but he was up against Dustin Hoffman from Rain Man, so he wasn't going to beat Hoffman playing an idiot savant that year.
Yeah,
right, next question's a doozy, so you got to put on your thinking cap. From a production standpoint only, what do you consider to be a better album? New Edition Heartbreak or Guy's Debut?
Oh, man, when you say Guy's Debut, are you talking about the I just want to be clear, we're on the same page. You're talking about Guy, the three gentlemen?
With Spend the Night,
say again?
Groove Me. Yeah, 1988
Oh,
Guy.
man. That guy. Yeah, Guy was my favorite R&B album of all time back then. I gotta go with Guy. Just when you hear the intro to Groove Me, oh my goodness, that was a jam. And those boys were some amazing musicians. Man, Guy hands down for me.
Yeah, I'm a big New Edition fan, so I always go with Heartbreak. But yeah, that Guy album was cool. I can remember being in the Air Force, and on Friday nights I did my entire tour in the UK. So one of my best friends, my guy Melvin Penn Jr., shout out to my man Melvin, we were getting ready for the club. Every Friday night, no matter what, he would always be playing that Guy Groove Me song when he was getting dressed. So yeah, definitely a cold record.
Man, let me tell you, that was back in the days when I was in the club scene, and that would be the first song. Now you said you spent most of your career, or all of your career, in the UK. Well, I spent half of my career in Kaiserslautern and Pirmasens, Germany. And during that time, so I went to basic training in 87 and AIT in 87. And then in October of 1987, my first duty station was Pirmasens, Germany. And so I got there in October of 87, and I was there for 3 years straight. Man, that Guy album, that particular song, Groove Me, every time you walked in the club, that's what was, man, they wore that song out, and I love that album. So, yeah, Guy to me. New Edition, I love New Edition too, but the Guy was just an amazing album for me.
All right, got hit with another doozy, brother. The year is 1972, and Norman Whitfield wants you to play sax on Papa Was a Rolling Stone by The Temptations. While you're on the phone with Norman, Gamble and Huff knock on your door and ask you to bring your saxophone talent to the OJ's Backstabbers album. Who are you going to pick?
Yeah, that's a hard one, but I'm going to have to go with Papa Was a Rolling Stone. That's the one you mentioned, right? Yeah,
yes, sir.
I'm gonna have to go with Papa. That was another song that I spent a lot of time in my formative years listening to. Just the message in the song was captivating, but then the groove too, man. I love that song. So, yeah, that again, I can't sing, but I'm tempted to start singing that song right now. That is a staple, at least, especially from where I lived in Chicago. So I started in a community called the Ickies. And then we moved over. The Chicagoans will know what I'm talking about. But I started in a community called the Ickies, which was kind of a rough area to live in. Then we moved to Wentworth Garden, and then we moved to LeClaire Courts. And so the message in that song had a lot of meaning in our neighborhoods, growing up in the black community. So, yeah, I'm going with Papa Was a Rolling Stone. I would be polishing up my sax, getting ready to go jam with those guys.
Yeah, no doubt. Norman made a monster with that song, and like one of the things that I love about that song, especially the unedited 12-minute version, the groove is just so infectious. And, they don't start singing until like about 1 minute and 40 seconds into the song. Just
into the song,
the way that Dennis Edwards comes in with that that first note that he hits with that gravelness in his voice, that is a classic infectious groove. And to this day, I think that's one of the few songs that is hard for anybody, I don't care how good of a singer you are, for anybody to cover because of that groove and just the way that Dennis Edwards sang it. Like, it's dang near impossible for anybody to bring the same groove and same bravado that Mr. Edwards brought to that song.
Yeah, man. I mean, it is that, and singing it with the passion and the soulfulness that the Temptations brought to that song. I mean, you think about the lyrics. It was the 3rd day of September. That day I'll always remember, yes, I will, because that was the day that my daddy died. I never got a chance to see him, never heard nothing but bad things about him. Mama, I'm depending on you to tell me the truth. Just that part right there, in the black community, a lot of young men growing up without their fathers for one reason or another, and then hearing the stories about their dads from their mothers, and then getting into the part where he was a Rolling Stone, wherever he laid his hat was his home, and when he died, all he left us was alone. Oh, man, if you haven't really experienced living in those type of environments, you can't sing that song no way. In my opinion, you have a hard time relating to that.
Speak on it.
Yeah.
All right, so I had a chance to check out some of your talent, and there's an awesome YouTube video where you covered John Legend's classic wedding ballad, "All of Me." How hard was it to master that song from a music reader standpoint? Is it a very simple medley?
The medley is simple once you get. First of all, let me say this: I love John Legend's music. He has some amazing songs out there that I want to play that most people don't even know that are out there. But that song was one of the ones that I would always get requests to play at weddings. And so I decided to connect with a friend of mine named John Waller, who's an amazing music producer, videographer, and a local pastor here in town. And we came together, and he did I told him I wanted to produce a song that was produce that song in a different way, kind of with a neo soul flavor. And so he did that, and I laid the original, well, not the original, but as close to the original melody as I could on top of it. We just thought it would be best not to do too much moving around in that song because it was such a popular song for weddings, and we didn't want people to not be able to connect with the song if I went too far outside of it. So we kept the melody pretty straight. The melody is not that hard to learn, but some of the nuances of it and feeling it, you have to spend some time practicing that. And I love that song. Even still to this day, it's still a popular wedding song. When I do live weddings, it's just an amazing song. So I enjoy that song as well as some of John Legend's, a lot of his other music, actually. I play another popular song of his that I haven't really released my own version to yet, and it's called, oh man, I'm losing the name of it now. Give me 1 second. So he's got All of Me, and then there's a really popular one that, why can't I think of it? Ordinary People. You familiar with Ordinary People from John Legend?
Yes, sir. Matter of fact, Al Jarreau and George Benson did an amazing cover of that song too.
Oh, I didn't know that. So I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, give me 1 second. It's on there. 06. When I was deployed to the desert, I spent a lot of time going through. I'm in the desert, so I'm doing nothing but buying music, and I would just buy CDs and actually sit there and really dissect. I mean, I've always really dissected music and been into it, but the album is George Benson and Al Jarreau, and it's called Giving It Up. They also covered God Bless the Child on that album, and it has a duet with Jill Scott on there where they cover God Bless the Child. Yeah, very, very nice grown man jazz album.
Oh man, gotta check it out. Yeah, I did not know that. There's another song John Legend does. I wonder if you know it, because most people don't know this one. It's called Maxine. Have you heard Maxine?
Probably not. I mean, I have all of John's stuff. I have the Maxine interlude saved in my playlist from the Once Again album, but I don't think I have the entire Maxine song on there.
Oh, my God.
I need the Maxine interlude.
Yeah, man. Let me tell you, the Maxine song is, that is, to me, is a classic. It's more of a jazz tune. It reminds me a little bit of in the flavor of a Girl from Ipanema, but it's an amazing tune. It has a creative message that the woman is actually cheating on her husband or boyfriend, and it's an amazing song the way he put it together. But the music is just awesome, and so I'm trying to figure out a way to recreate that song as well, with a different twist to it as an instrumental. So, yep, but love John Legend's music, and All of Me and Ordinary People and Maxine are three of my favorite songs of his.
Is there anything you'd like to add? And where can fans find you on social media?
Okay. So, first of all, let me just tell you, Derek, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview for me and with me and figuring out, what I'm all about and what we're all about as a music group, and spreading the word about us. The Charles Cannon Group, when our country opens back up and when our community opens back up and recovers from the virus, we are preparing to do some amazing things in our community when it comes to music. We're not looking to be famous or any of those things, but we do just want to share our gifts and our talents with everybody around us. So having said that, you can find us on Facebook under the Charles Cannon Group. I am in the middle of developing my website now, so that is almost done. As you know, I'm working with your friend and mine, Mr. Chucky Daniels, on getting that complete, and it's going to be a great ride. I'm also working on my first CD project, which is due to be released at the end of 2020. So around Christmas time in December, I'll have my first solo project out, and so look for that. And that's basically it. I'm excited about the future, excited about the music we're producing, and I'm looking forward to sharing that music with the community.
Respect, and I want to thank you for taking the time to chop it up with me on my platform. You know, I'm all about giving fellow creatives just a chance to tell their testimony, tell their story, and learn. I mean, I'll be 39 on Monday, but I've always considered myself an old soul. So I love talking old school music with, you know, gentlemen and women that are a bit older than me, just to get a feel for how it was and grow up, you know, when music was music, and be around that entire movement, you know, stuff that was before my time, or stuff that I was, you know, I may have been alive, but I didn't actually get a chance to experience it when it was, you know, in its prime at that time. So once again, folks, we've had Mr. Charles Cannon of the Charles Cannon Music Group on the line today. I hope you all learned some stuff about Mr. Cannon, and when this whole COVID is over, get out there and support Mr. Cannon. And this brother is providing real music, classy music. So check him out. And I want to close with a quote by Miles Davis. I'm always thinking about creating. My future starts when I wake up in the morning and see the light. On that note, stay positive, stay blessed, and as always, be inspired. Until the next time, Dunn out.